All right, that was a great video to share. We'll make sure to provide that video link to you all in the chat as well as in the comments. And let me go ahead and shut it off before, please. But what we want to do is get started with our program, and I'm going to bring to you all our Supplier Diversity Manager from BP, Kim Thornton. Kim, take it away.
Are you able to hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Awesome. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting us today to speak on behalf of BP. We are really, really excited to be here. I don't know about everyone else in the crowd, but that video always gets us really energized and excited about all the great things that we're doing here at BP. And as you saw through that short 40-second clip, there are a lot of really exciting things that we intend over the next few years. Ultimately, we intend to be a very different company, even as early as by 2030. You saw in there that we will be investing heavily in our low carbon space. And for our oil and gas production, we're focused on really reducing our emissions by 30 to 40%. And then finally, substantially growing our mobility and convenience presence in America. So really, really great things happening even by 2030. So when you consider everything that we're doing, you can understand why, if you look at BP, you've maybe heard that we're transitioning from an IOC to an IEC. In other words, from an international oil company to an integrated energy company. And ultimately, our goal is to be net zero by 2050. Now, as you know, we don't expect that we can do this without the help of folks like yourselves and just a very strong supplier base at large. BP strongly believes that a diverse supply chain is a business imperative. We need suppliers who can demonstrate their ability to work in an agile manner, to offer innovative solutions, and create social and economic value in the communities where we live and operate. In short, we view supplier diversity as good business, plain and simple. It helps us meet some really, really great people in the cities and regions we operate, as well as where we live. Now, given everything that you've seen in the last few minutes about BP's transition, I want to talk to you a little bit about what that means from a supplier diversity perspective. I think Phil mentioned earlier on that we were one of the first major corporations that established a program specific to driving supplier diversity into our supply chain. We want our entire workforce, including our partners, to really reflect the communities where we operate. So when I think about how we're set up here in the US from a supplier diversity perspective, we have a team of 5. I have several of my colleagues on the line with me today, and I'm sure if there are questions that are coming in that they're monitoring those. So please pop in any questions you may have into that chat. But we are a team of 5, and we work with hundreds. In fact, I believe we work with nearly 200 of America's minority and women business enterprises each year just to do work with BP. And so, but it's not something that we can do alone. One of the things that I like to use when I'm talking to my colleagues internally is I see this really as a 3-legged stool. So you have supplier diversity, you have our procurement organization, and then you have the business. And if you think about a stool has to have all 3 of those legs holding their weight equally in order to hold up whatever or whomever sits on that stool. So from a supplier diversity perspective, we go out and find the suppliers like yourselves. We work with you to ensure you're certified, to vet how you can provide service to BP. So we take those suppliers and bring them into BP. It's up to our procurement colleagues at that point in partnership with us to ensure that diverse suppliers are included in the RFP process as we're trying to figure out who's the proper supplier that we will move forward with. So we really focus on driving inclusion through that procurement process. And then finally, our business colleagues in BP are ultimately the ones who make that decision on which supplier they go with. And so we partner fully around that 3-legged stool to make sure that we're creating a very diverse and integrated supply chain. And we'll actually demonstrate that actually because I have one of my colleagues who sits outside of supplier diversity and in the business that'll be joining us here shortly to talk a bit more about some specific areas. So what we push is it takes all of us to move the needle here. Additionally, BP has set out several commitments over the last few years. First, we established a framework for action following the incident with George Floyd last spring. And with that framework for action, we set out 11 initiatives where we've committed to absolutely being at the forefront of changing how our organization works and actually impacting the communities we operate. And one of those initiatives is to double our diverse supplier spend by 2023. We are really, really excited about that. In addition to that, BP set out their sustainability report a few months ago. And within that sustainability report, there are several different aims. One of the aims, specifically aim 14, focuses on greater equity. And within that aim, we've actually made a commitment to achieve $1 billion in spend annually with diverse suppliers. So it's a really, really lofty goal that we've set out there, and we can't do it without folks like yourselves. So I would encourage you to consider BP. We're really excited that you're here on this call today. As you've heard, we've got lots of exciting things that are happening as we transition into an energy company, but deeper down in the organization, there's a fundamental belief that we need diverse suppliers such as yourselves to help get us there. So with that, I'm trying to be mindful of time because we got started a little bit later. I do want to open it up for some questions if there are any that my colleagues have picked up. And just keep in mind, we're going to have a bit more of a deep dive in a bit with my colleague Alexis Adamson. So if there are specific questions around low carbon, we'll table those till later. But if there are any questions about what BP is doing in this transition and from a supplier diversity perspective, happy to take those. So Phil, maybe over to you or Tamara.
Yes. Kim, thank you so much for that brief introduction. I really don't think that it tells the full story about what BP is attempting to do for minority communities, but I thank you for that. And thank you also for making the adjustment on time. But we do have a question that just came in, and I know that you talk about the $1 billion initiative annually. But where's the current spending on diverse suppliers that you plan to double next year? Can you share that?
So we are at several $100 million at this point. And so when we look at the trajectory, it would simply be how do we get to that $1 billion of spend? We work with, as I mentioned, 200 minority and women business enterprises. But if I think about our entire portfolio of vendors, it's well over, it's about 300 plus at this point. And we are spending well over I would say $300 million. Now you have to keep in mind, one of the things that BP has done in the past is we've had lots of divestments. And so as we've transitioned out of petrochemicals and the Alaska business, we've absolutely seen a hit to some of that spend. And our intent is to recover a lot of that spend going forward with the transition and with the new endeavors that BP has. And Phil, I'm really glad you mentioned that it was a bit of an understatement about what we're doing. I mean, we work tirelessly within the communities where we operate and even outside of that. And actually the team is looking to expand even into the UK and beyond. So we are taking supplier diversity global. And we work really closely with local organizations, with the national certifying organizations to pull in as many diverse suppliers as we can. And over the last 10 years, we've spent well over several $1 billion with diverse vendors, but we are aiming to do even more in the upcoming years. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, it does. And I also want to highlight almost like a pitch that came through as we began the program, and it came from Joe James. Joe James says he is a Black ag tech entrepreneur who invented and is implementing interrelated and patented processes which can cost effectively combat climate change, promote environmental justice, and create new jobs in poor and urban and rural communities of color globally, not just here in the United States. He says further that using our patented combined remediation biomass and bioproduct production process, we plant and then multitask special biocrops to do good things like capturing large amounts of CO2, remediating air, soil, and water, and then making circular economy bioproducts from the harvested material. So as an example of their traction, in Maryland, his company is located in Maryland. They are commercializing an urban application of their process. In Baltimore, aided by the Exelon Foundation's Climate Change Investment Initiative. He wants to reach out to BP. Can you tell us here verbally where he should send his email so that he can connect with you all, Kim?
Absolutely. And was it James? Is that right?
Joe James. Joe
Joe
James, the president of Agritech Producers.
Wonderful. Well, Joe James, thank you so much for sharing a bit about your company. I'm really excited to hear about all the innovative solutions that you clearly have underway. And I think my colleagues have put it in the chat, but to Phil's point, I'll verbally just share, please go out and register with our company. It really is the first step. So at www.bp.com/supplier diversity, no spaces. If you just simply go out to that website, it'll get you started on how to partner with BP. Also, one of the things that I want to share is we're doing a lot more events like this today. And one of the things that we're trying to do is have what we call supplier days in the upcoming months, where we're actually intending to bring suppliers in, actually putting forth a problem that BP has and saying, okay, if you've got the solution for us, come and see us, register, come in and talk to our team along with the business experts and the procurement folks to understand how and if we can partner with you. So I'm really excited to hear about what you're doing, Mr. James. Would encourage you to get registered, and we hope to see you in the upcoming months. So hopefully that answers the question about where to register.
Perfect response, Kim. I'm just going to repeat it here, www.bp.com/supplier diversity. Go out there, Joe James, and others who are interested in doing business with BP and register your business on their database. And I think that, that brings us to a point. I know that we have, a ton of questions that are going to be coming in throughout, but I know that you have something fun planned for the audience. Is that right, Kim?
That's right. But before we do that, I did want to mention one last thing, Phil. I'm trying to get in my little pings just for folks to really understand what we're doing. I'm briefly mentioned the framework for action that BP set out in response to the George Floyd incident. And in there, it encapsulates 11 initiatives, of which one is supplier diversity. But for this audience, I think it's really, really important to also point out that there are several initiatives really focused on driving inclusion across the African-American population, both within BP and within the communities that we serve. So I think it's important that we point out there's a lot underway. We are looking at how do we drive inclusion at the highest levels of the organization? How do we provide the resources that people need? So not only are we doing more for our suppliers, but we're doing more for our employees as well. And I want to thank Christina for reminding me to make sure I didn't miss that. So with that, to Phil's point, we do have a quick little event poll or survey just to sort of test if you were listening and what you maybe captured from the brief video that was shown. So I believe it's maybe 4 questions, Phil, is that right? And I'll walk the group through that.
Yes. So what I've done, I've placed the link into the chat, but then I'm also going to share my screen so that you can walk us through this question. So we can walk through it together.
Okay.
And so let me know if you can see our screen. It should be my event poll screen that is showing for you all.
I can see it.
All right. Okay, so here, I know that there's going to be a couple of questions. All right. And I don't know if you want to read them to the audience and then we'll walk through them together, or how do you want to do?
Yeah, I'll just quickly go through it and you all fill in the blanks through the My Event poll. So BP's purpose is to reimagine energy for our blank and blank. Make your selection. Is that employees in the world, our people and our planet, or our net zero and our ambition? So have at it. And I'm not sure if Phil, if we're able to see, let's see, can I see I can't see the responses coming in. All right, well, maybe in the interest of time, I will share that our purpose is to reimagine energy for our people and planet. So hopefully you selected that in your My Event poll. So it has you, Phil, as if you're taking the quiz. I guess you're on the hot seat here.
Oh, I am. Okay. Well, I think, I'll do that. I'll take that challenge and I will.
Yes. So hopefully our friends who have joined in the audience are also going through this. The next question. And I'm still seeing the first one.
Okay, let's see if it advances forward. Let's see here. Let me double. Okay, it received it. Okay, and now we are seeing some of the
There we
results.
go.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, I think at the beginning that quick glance I got had most folks had received or had input the right answer. So now, second question. BP Sustainability Aim 14 on blank blank is to achieve how much in diverse spend by when? Look, that's a loaded one. So put your answers in there. Again, Phil, you're really on the hot seat here.
I'm on the hot seat. I remember like key numbers. I'm originally like an accountant, and I know $1 billion was thrown around, and I see 1 billion in there. It's
That's
like a
right.
CPA exam. I'm going to go with that.
And you are correct. I don't. Hopefully, our colleagues remembered that $1 billion. So again, our aim 14, BP Sustainability Aim 14 on greater equity is to achieve $1 billion in diverse spend by 2025. One final question. See if we
Almost
can.
feel like I need to do a drum roll, Kim. I'm on the edge of my seat with this last one. Let's see here.
That's right. It's probably the
question here. Oh, someone said that looks like Christina said that 90% got the correct answer for number one, 82% got the correct answer for number two. Let's see if we can go for 100% with this last.
Awesome. And thank you for whoever dropped that in the chat. So final question, what are BP's Reimagining Energy 3 areas of focus? A, B, or C? Give you just a couple moments. Phil, any thoughts on that, guy?
All right, so I'm thinking about this, and I know that we want to move towards net zero. Net zero can be achieved through a combination of renewables, solar, and wind. I'm just going to close my eyes and go right in the middle. That's how I graduate.
Phil, I hate to tell you this, but that is not the correct answer. While it is extremely important, the answer is A. It's resilient hydrocarbons, so it's reducing our carbon emissions. It's gas and low carbon energy, and also we're looking to expand our mobility and convenience here in the US. So let's see, did anyone report what our friends on the line have selected? That was not the easiest.
Oh, it says here only 30% of the participants got this one correct. The answer is A, as you said. So what it shows us is that we still have a lot to learn about this initiative and about what each of us can do to help support this initiative, myself included. So definitely glad to see that we're still have some room for improvement here to learn.
You know, and it's not just you all. What it also tells me is we can do a better job of even articulating or sharing that more publicly. And that's why we are excited about forums like the one we're at today. So spread the word, and hopefully we'll hear from you all soon on how we can partner. Now with that, I am going to transition over to my colleague, Alexis Adamson, who will take you through a bit of a deep dive of our gas and low carbon energy strategy. So really some neat things here. A little bit about Alexis. She's been at BP in the procurement space for 12 years. She has covered downstream, upstream oil and gas, materials management, contractor safety, and most recently, low carbon energy. In her current role, she leads procurement for our onshore wind and solar business for BP in the US and serves as the ethics and compliance liaison for the wind business. Alexis is really passionate about creative solutions and thinking outside the box to solve problems. And she's really excited to be able to help low carbon energy contribute to our billion dollar ambition. So we couldn't have asked for a better partner to join us today to share a bit more about what BP is doing. So with that, Alexis, over to you.
Thanks, Kim. I'm really, really excited to be here. There's so many things that I'm passionate about with sustainability, with supplier diversity, with our new strategy. And, I've been kind of mired in workload since reInvent. We've got a lot going on, and this has been a really good opportunity for me to reflect and actually realize how excited I am about the individual points. Like, I keep looking into something to prepare for this conversation. I go, oh, that's my favorite. And then I see another bullet and I go, oh, wait, no, that's my favorite. Oh no, I'm really excited about this. So I'm primed and ready to go. And you'll probably, I hope, hear how excited I am, and also understand we're on the forefront of this and we're ready to do things differently. And we need to find good partners to do that. Okay, so Phil, do you want to start our slides?
Yes, let me pull up your slide.
Okay. All right, while that's starting up, the first one's pretty simple. So generally in BP, what we've called reInvent is we are going from a integrated oil company, what we call IOC, to an IEC, an integrated energy company. And at first it sort of just feels like a name because we've always had low carbon elements, they've come and gone over the years. And this is reflective that it is actually a core part of our purpose now. When we say integrated, what does that mean? So one of my favorite things that our CEO talks about is there is no reason to separate profits and purpose. We should be looking at our profits, and in years they've gone up and down, but we should be looking at our profits and our resources as a way to contribute to meeting net zero goals across the world, improving lives. We shouldn't just be keeping it for ourselves, right? But the really interesting thing is it's not viewed by us as a charitable effort. It's a necessary effort. And we actually think that we can still make good money doing this. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Oil companies are unique in the regard that most of us have global outreach, right? We've got long experience. We've been around for centuries, or a century, if not more. And then individually, like Kim mentioned with my own career trajectory, a lot of us have worked all over the place, and we're uniquely positioned to be able to bring what we've learned to gas and low carbon energy in a way that we haven't in the industry before. The other thing that is important here is when we talk about integration, it's not just integrated between the industries that we are generating energy for. It's about looking for opportunities within the value chain and across value chains. So where can we, like in my business in wind, where can I leverage what we're doing in other parts of the world to make ourselves more efficient? Another key thing about the strategy that's really resonated with me is it's about customers and the perception of customers, not just our retail customers at a gas station. It's also about the stakeholders we have and how we work. So our customers could be, in the case of wind, it could be somebody at their home turning on the light switch. They don't even know that they're getting it from BP. It could be somebody who is driving an electric car and needs more charging stations to be able to make that their daily form of transportation. It's looking at our customer base wider than we have in the past. Okay, so there's 3 key elements of our strategy with being an IEC. So there's low carbon electricity and energy. So that's what the area that I work in. The standard things that we think about with low carbon electricity, wind, solar, and we've got onshore wind, we're getting into the offshore wind space. And then some other things that we don't always think about. So integrated gas, bioenergy, which has sort of come and gone from the industry over the years, and hydrogen and carbon capture. And we are not on the forefront, in my opinion, today for hydrogen and CCUS, but we're getting there. Our ambition is to be an early participant in that more than we have in the past. And if you think about integration, there's some really cool things, and we're not the only ones here, but some cool ways to capture carbon and then utilize it in our offshore oil and gas operations, which we wouldn't necessarily be able to do as easily if it was two separate companies doing that work. And in convenience and mobility, so it's about the growth market. So where do we have opportunities for growth? Redefining convenience. So like I talked about, when we think about, BP's customers, we've historically, and perhaps you as well, have thought of the customers at a gas station, but understanding like, what is that? What is the convenience store experience? And net gen mobility. So that's not only working internally to BP, but it's connecting with regions and cities who need support in achieving their net zero goals. And with other companies that may not be BP subsidiaries, but with other companies who are developing technology in this space. And then the last piece, and Kim mentioned this as well, is resilient and focused hydrocarbons. BP, we'll say 10 years ago, had this reputation, and I think we were excited about it, that we would go places other companies wouldn't go, be able to do things other companies wouldn't be able to do, be able to work with governments. Sometimes we consider them, hostile relationships, but being able to work with governments that other companies weren't able to work with. And that was really a source of pride, and in many cases, a source of revenue, but a source of stress and an element of risk. And we've shifted a bit. So now it's about, without a shadow of a doubt, making sure that operations are safe and reliable. That's the base case. Beyond that, it's about where can we do so while driving emissions down, and focusing our upstream portfolio so that we are looking at advantage oil. So oil that is more profitable. So we're not as broad, we're more focused, but we're still generating the profits safely and contributing to a shift in the industry overall of being able to produce oil and gas in a cleaner way than I think we thought possible in the past. So those are our three sort of categories. And then we have these underlying elements that we want to use to amplify the value. So we talked about integrated energy already. I mentioned partnering with countries, cities, and industries. And this is one of those things where I thought, the integrated energy part really made me excited, because that's me, right? I've been working in all these different elements of energy. And then I thought about, partnering with cities, that one really speaks to me. I really like that one. It's about finding cities that need help, that we are well positioned to give. And as they shape their own path to net zero, how can we contribute to the infrastructure in the city, the sustainable livelihood of the people who live there, education, human rights, you name it. And we actually have a whole big team called Regions and Cities. And then the third one, again, this is another one that I get really excited about because I've worked in this space too, and really leaning into digital and innovation. So new ways to be efficient. It's at a micro level. So we've implemented solutions just within my little team that have reduced transactional cycle time from 17 days to 6. Like, that's huge. And that's not something that in the past we would have really ever thought about. We would have not really known how to do it, and just stuck it over to the side. To really big things. So implementing charging stations for electric vehicles across the US that are rapid charging stations, across the UK. Another thing we're doing is using drones for blade inspections in onshore wind, which will be really important when we go offshore. These are the things that will enable us to do things quicker and in a more agile way than we have in the past, and than we have when our businesses were siloed. Okay, we'll go to the next slide, and I'll just touch on this quickly because I know Kim talked through this point. If you have a chance to, we have a sustainability report that we issue, and it's chock full of information. It's well organized though, so you don't have to read through the whole thing. But it's a cool way to see like what we're doing in this space, and how we're doing against our ambitions. So part of our reinvent strategy was the commitment to transparent reporting. And that goes all the way from sustainability to tax, like reporting it in a different way so that we build that trust. It's not just about us knowing we're doing the right thing. It's about us testing that with our stakeholders, testing that with our neighbors, and making sure we are actually doing the right thing and we're not just working under assumptions. I will raise my hand up and say, in wind, we are not in great shape with supplier diversity. And I'll talk a little bit more about perhaps the reasons I think why on the next slide, and what we want to do about it. And when Tamara and I met 3 months ago or so, and we talked about this ambition, it was really daunting. And I just thought, oh my gosh, how are we going to get there? And it's actually now more exciting because of this ambition, because we've put it on paper, because we've committed to it, we have changes being made in the processes we have in procurement that we've never done before. So one of the things we do when we are getting new contracts in place or new strategies in place is they go through contract governance boards, and we go through a financial approval process. For the first time in my experience, there is a line item for how is this contributing to our sustainability ambitions. So that's a question that our leaders are going to have to ask and get satisfied with the answer about how is this making us better? And if the answer is it's not, it's just saving money, there's a good chance that our leaders are going to go, no, we got to find a different way. That is pretty cool. That's a pretty cool thing for me. So let's go to the next slide and we can talk more about onshore wind. One of the things that we talked about earlier on in this session was about what our investment. So we want to get to $5 billion of low carbon energy investment by 2030. That's huge. That's 10 times more than we are today. And part of that will be 50 gigawatts net renewable generating capacity by the same year, and half of that by 2025. In terms of wind, so onshore wind, which is the team that I sit on, we are currently at 1.7 gigawatts, and we have ambitions to grow in a huge way quickly in that space. We also have a company called Lightsource BP that is solar, and there's 1.4 gigawatts of generating capacity there. And then just recently, a month and a half ago or so, we acquired a company, elements of a company that will give us 9 gigawatt pipeline of solar assets. So as we all know, some of those may develop, some of them may not, but if you look at 9 gigawatts compared to what we have now, which is 3.1 between us in the US onshore and Lightsource BP, that's huge. So lots of numbers, but the key takeaway here is we are growing at pace. We do not have the luxury of doing things the way that we've always done them. We can't sit still. We've got to get more efficient so that we can grow, and we've got to be able to leverage what the options we have in the market, find new options in the market, and that will help us meet these ambitions and meet these targets and do it in a sustainable way. Again, I'll put my hand up, being honest here. One of the things that we used to say, or I used to say in here in oil and gas was, we ask, okay, well, have you included diverse suppliers? And we go, no, we can't go with a small company right now. And no, there isn't one that has what we need. That's just flat unacceptable, especially at this point. It's not going to help us get where we want to get, and it's not the right thing for the communities we're working in. So the good thing about wind, especially onshore wind, is we are a smaller player. So we're smaller compared to BP. We're also smaller compared to some of the other operators. Our strategy is not to go with the quote unquote big fish. Our strategy is to go with smaller to mid-sized providers that we can partner with, that we see as equals and they see us as equals, so that we can grow together. And that opens up a lot of doors in conversations that haven't been open in the other areas that I've worked in. The other thing that I really want to do in wind, and we're still trying to figure out how best we do this, is we can't just go with a scope of work to the market and say, oh, there weren't any diverse suppliers, so we'll just go with what we know. We need to get upstream of that. We need to identify areas, especially as renewables grow across the US, in and outside of BP, there will be a strain on the supplier market. And we need to figure out how to identify the needs early enough so that our suppliers or potential suppliers can build the talent, build the capability, so that they will be competitive for those options later on. We've got some things working against us in wind. We're spread out. They're remote sites. We've got some different support models across our different sites. But the cool thing is we've got site teams. We also have a technical functions team that sits centrally. And we've got a team with an appetite for change and an appetite for doing things differently. And a massive part of that is engaging suppliers we haven't worked with in the past and finding ways to partner and make ourselves better. So that is a lot of words from me. I hope I stayed on time, Phil, and you can keep me honest there. I'm really looking forward to questions that you have. And if we don't get to them now, the team is committed to circling back later so that we get them all answered.
Alexis, you did great. You actually beat and were ahead of time. So I'm definitely appreciative of that. Now, we do have some questions that came in as you were presenting. So first of all, I want to thank you for this amazing presentation. I think it has a lot of great information to help some of our businesses understand the opportunities as well as the challenges that not only BP faces, but our businesses face. You mentioned that you're spread out throughout the United States. And so we may have some businesses that aren't located geographically in those locations, but it could present an opportunity in the future. So one of the questions that came in, I know that we're talking about wind energy, but is there any appetite for BP for nuclear energy? And if so, what type of services are you all looking for in that area?
You know what? I don't know. If I'm completely honest, I might have to do a little bit of digging and get back with a clearer answer. I haven't heard anything specific about nuclear. There's lots of regulatory and social sort of stigma hurdles in that space, but that's never stopped us before. So let me take that as an action to explore that a little bit better and get back with a more detailed answer.
Okay, thank you for that. And then here's a question, not so much about direct purchasing that goes into wind and renewables, but we have an indirect supplier that's taking a look at BP. And their question is, I'm a chiropractor in the Houston area, and one of the roadblocks I keep hitting when it comes to procurement is the difficulty of getting into the door to provide wellness-based services. What are some of the opportunities available for some of your indirect suppliers and service providers? How can they get their foot in the door? Is it through the same supplier diversity link that we provided earlier?
I believe so. I'm going to lean on Kim and Tamara for that answer, if I may.
Okay, so the question was, and we're going to bring Kim or Tamara back to the stage here. But we wanted to know about indirect opportunities. We do have some folks that are service providers in the local BP markets where your BP offices are situated. They also want to do business with BP. How can they approach BP as a service provider? Some of the indirect opportunities.
Yeah, it's a great question, Phil, and we don't differentiate, right? So a supplier is a supplier. We have agreements with indirect procurement just as we do with our direct procurement folks. So Tamara probably could answer this, but I would just say this process is no different, that you still register. According to the site that I provided earlier with the bp.com/supplier diversity, we actually look at suppliers across all of our different categories of needs. And determine based on what the need is, whether it's indirect or not, we pull on those suppliers who can provide that service or good. So we really don't treat them any differently.
Perfect. And that question came in, by the way, from Dr. Alexis, well-known chiropractic doctor here in Houston. So I'm sure she'll be in touch. I have another question. Do you accept supplier pitches during concept mode or only after the patents have been secured?
So I don't deal a lot with work that's patented, but we, if I sort of translate that to the processes that we have, we request proposals all throughout the process, and sometimes the model is different. So if I think about our major projects, sometimes we are partnering with a single provider to do it soup to nuts. Sometimes we're breaking it up into pieces. It depends on the scale, the pace, the options, et cetera. If we're breaking it up into pieces, we do RFPs through the whole thing. So we don't wait until the end. What I don't think we're great at is, rather than a project level, like RFP or pitch, as it were, we're not great at market level pitches. So the answer is, yes to a version of the question. Yes, we accept proposals where we ask for them all along the way. And our team has part of our process. We reach out to Kim's team. We reach out to Tamara and Christina and ask, like, hey, we've got this RFP going out. Can you please let me know who's available? And where I want to get better is, hey, we are going to see a need over the next 12 to 18 months for an engineering provider who can do this. Who should we be talking to build that capability? And maybe it's not project specific, but it's sort of like, if we go backwards in the process, go upstream in the process and look from a market level, where are we going to need help and where do we think we're going to struggle to find it? And give our suppliers, especially smaller suppliers, diverse suppliers, people who can bring us different perspectives, and give them the opportunity to build that before we get so far down the pike that we don't have time for somebody to build capability.
Okay, so a great response there, because it also leads to the importance of networking in between these opportunities, so that some of the major businesses that are doing business with BP and sort of help shed light on some of the smaller suppliers that are out there. So definitely glad that you brought that up. Now I have another question. I'm getting a lot of thank you BPs coming through the comments. So you all are doing an amazing job. Do have a specific question about your supply chain challenges and warehouse operations. So when you think about some of the transportation and trucks that come in and out of your warehouses, do you see a lot of truck detention time? Would you be interested in technology that will reduce detention time and also thus reduce pollution from truck lineups? Is that something that you all are experiencing right now?
So if I, going back a few years into my materials management role, yes, it's absolutely important. We don't run our own trucks for upstream oil and gas. We may or may not in pipelines. We are looking a lot into the different tiers of emissions. So it's a lot easier for us to calculate our emissions that are within our shop, right? More difficult, but perhaps no less important, to measure those of our contractors. So I would say connect with the supplier diversity team through the portal. I'll drop a line to our materials management strategy team to let them know that there's that option available. It may be more complicated because they're not our trucks, right? So it's about influencing our suppliers to adopt new technology, but it's certainly not out of the question. It's an important thing. We need to be reducing emissions, period, across the board along our value chains, whether it's ours or technically someone else's.
Perfect. And so that question came in. Hopefully, they were paying attention to definitely go out to the Supplier Diversity portal at BP and, make yourself known to BP and make yourself known as far as the technology that you can offer to help alleviate some of these challenges. So the next two questions, I have one more question that is sort of general in nature, and then I'm going to close out with the final question. But this next question comes from Dominique Boone of Leslie's Laundry Care, and she's asking, or they're asking, what industries are you looking to do business with in general? So maybe give us the top 3 to 5 industries that you're looking to do business with, and then we'll sort of provide some additional information after the webinar.
I mean, I can answer for wind, and then I'll have to kick it over to the supplier diversity team for more general. The thing that's on the top of my mind is about engineering, because we have, the way the administration is set up, there's going to be a lot of renewables work, a lot of development work over the next, I would say, 2 to 5 years. And we are at risk of getting the scraps if we can't partner with a good qualified engineering company now. Everybody else is going to beat us to it. So that's sort of at front of mind. That's not a reflection of our spend level or the amount of transactions. That's just a measure of urgency of what's on the top of mind as I'm leading procurement. Supplier diversity team, I guess Kim's team, maybe you can answer for BP as a whole.
Sure, and I did want to circle back just on that very last question about the logistics piece. Alexis did a great job of answering the question, but I also want to share that we also promote a very strong Tier 2 program. So for those who can work with our suppliers, our main suppliers, to address some of the needs of reducing that was talked about in the previous question, please also continue to work with us on that as well, because we do push for our suppliers to have a very diverse supply chain as well. So perhaps you may not work with BP directly, but through our suppliers. So just wanted to put that out there. In terms of areas, I mean, right now we're looking at how do we earmark specific areas to drive additional supplier diversity. But if I'm just speaking off the top of my head, we haven't said we isolate to these 4 or 5 industries or categories, if you will. But we're looking across the whole host. We're looking at marketing services, at professional services, some of the engineering bits that Alexis touched on. So I would say that we're not limited in how we want to expand. We believe there's a place for diverse suppliers across all of the categories that we operate. So come see us. If there's a need, we'll certainly follow up.
And I like those answers because it demonstrates your commitment to attempting to be as inclusive as possible for all of the minority businesses out there that are of quality and that want to do business with BP. So thank you both for those responses. I want to close out with a question that came in, and I'll try to be as brief as possible. The question came from Erica Barnes Ford. To become a vendor supplier with BP, what type of certification must you have, and how difficult is it to become vendor certified with BP? I'm a Black female-owned firm. And Christina Santiago of BP provided the response, and she said that certification through the National Minority Supplier Diversity or Development Council, Women's Business Enterprise National Council, NGLCC, and or National Veterans Business Development Council. Our supplier expectations can be found at the following link, and we'll provide a full listing of all the links that BP has provided, but basically there is a Supplying to BP supplier expectations page that I'm going to share in a follow-up email after this webinar. But if you all are interested in becoming minority-owned certified or getting your certification for your minority-owned status, we'll provide that information from the text that Christina has provided here as well. And so with that, I wanted to close us out of respect for everyone's time. I want to thank you, Kim Thornton, Alexis Adamson, and then I also want to give a very special thank you to some behind the scene folks that did a lot of work leading up to this webinar today, Tamara Garrett and Christina Santiago. On behalf of our president, Ron Busby, our board, our business constituents, we thank you all for providing this very valuable information. And we look so forward to working with BP in the future to help create opportunities and improve outcomes for our member businesses. So we thank you all, want to return you back to your day. And this webinar has been recorded and will be replayed, edited and replayed in the future and made available on demand. So thank you all, Kim. Thank you, Alexis. And you all have a great day to our audience. Thank you.
Thank you.